Welcome to episode 4 of the Students of Real Estate podcast. Today we are joined by Greg Hughes, the managing partner at Seyon Management and a Bentley alum. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo.
Of course. So I'm Lorenzo. I'm a junior in the VP at Bentley Real Estate Group. So we'll start off, Greg, by asking you just kind of learning about your background and where you're from, where you grew up, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think what you're doing with this is awesome. This is cool to have this platform. So I grew up in Bedford, Mass. And I actually transferred to Bentley after my freshman year. So I did my freshman year up at St. Mike's in Vermont, um, which is a great school, great liberal arts school, but really um, wanted to get more focused in business. I took a business class up there and I wanted more of that and had a few friends that went to Bentley and knew of Bentley and so transferred in my sophomore year and it was honestly the best decision I made. I had a lot of internships throughout college, which I'm sure we'll touch on. And really have kind of been in that construction real estate world, since my first internship, really, and have kind of done a bunch of different things within real estate. A lot of what I call property services side, property management, construction management, but also spent a fair amount of time, in an asset management seat. And I actually worked for a broker for a little bit too. So I've kind of done it all. It's a great industry. I think Bentley is a great school. Prepares kids really well to enter an industry like real estate. Like I said, been really impressed with you guys, and obviously we've met at a few of your guys' events, and I've spoke at a few things, and then had the career night, and every time I go back to Bentley, it's it makes me feel good that I kind of came from the same place as you guys.
Yeah.
It's a different type of student that goes to Bentley. I talked to a lot of college kids, a lot with more impressive, on paper universities, and I'm still just the kids out of Bentley always seem to impress. So it's good to
Awesome.
connect with you guys and help
Definitely.
out.
No, I appreciate it a lot, and I appreciate your time as well. You always come on to the events. Um, so you said you transferred to Bentley because you had a couple of friends at over there.
Yeah, I mean, so ironically enough, my grandfather actually went to Bentley when it was an
Okay.
accounting school in Boston. So I you could say it's sort of in my blood. But growing up in Bedford, a few towns over, always knew of Bentley. Went to sports camps and stuff over there growing up, um, and always knew it was more business focused. And like I said, St. Mike's was great. It's more of a liberal arts kind of education, and I took a business class my freshman year that I really loved and wanted more of it. It just a place like St. Mike's wasn't as much opportunity, and so made the switch
Got
to
it.
Bentley. I also Vermont is an awesome place to visit.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a very slow paced environment, which I don't do well in. So I really kind of needed to kind of come back home and get back into, a little bit more of a fast paced,
Absolutely.
place.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask you what kind of drove you to the business side of it. So how could you describe yourself as a student? Were you super like career oriented, or were you more of kind of figuring things out as you go?
Yeah, I would say, wasn't probably the best student in the classroom, but I always approached, even the summer going into my freshman year as, just trying to get as many internships as possible. I was really fortunate. My father ran a big construction company, a general contractor here in Boston that, just being the boss's kid allowed me to get exposure to a lot of, good internships. And I always tried. So whether it was summer internships or winter break or even I had a few internships that, ran parallel to semesters. I always just tried to have something going. So I would say I was very sort of career focused, and really, enjoyed that part. I think that's one thing about Bentley too, that, they're good partners in that. Not a lot of schools have the opportunities that Bentley does in terms of internships and that sort of thing. So yeah, so I was really focused, obviously, class and that sort of thing. But just outside of that was really focused on just trying to get as much, experience and try different things as possible,
Got it.
throughout college.
Sounds good. So you graduated with a management major?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so
Yep.
why kind of management instead of like finance or like
Yeah.
other?
Yeah. So what I did, like I knew pretty early on that real estate was what I wanted to do. Um, Bentley, I still think today they don't have, sort of that real estate focus, but there was a bunch of classes in different sort of areas. So there was a really good real estate law class, really good real estate finance class, a few other sort of like real estate orientated, economics and stuff classes. So I kind of like pieced together my own sort of like adventure through. Management just gave me sort of the flexibility to take all those classes.
Right.
Um, I definitely was, at least back then I was kind of an outcast not being an accounting or finance major, but, it gave me a little bit more flexibility to kind of like dive into those different, classes that were in, other majors and that sort of thing.
Got it. No, that's funny because my girlfriend actually she decided to she was doing a finance major, but then she
Yeah.
kind of switched. She's now doing management, and
Hmm.
she's telling me the same thing. Like you kind of get a little bit of everything. Because I'm doing finance, and honestly, what I'm learning is that finance at Bentley is a lot of like it's more of stocks investments, right? I'm learning a lot
Hmm.
about that, and obviously, finance overall, like managing your money, all that stuff. But obviously, I'm more into the real estate side, and you mentioned, we obviously had that law class and the investment class. I think. I might be wrong, but I think that law class is no longer there, and I think
Hmm.
it's only the investments class. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring this podcast to life, is because we don't have
Yeah.
the Bentley Real Estate Group is the second biggest club with over 800 members in the
Hmm.
school, and so clearly there's a lot of interest, but we don't have a lot of resources real estate related. We don't have we only have that class now, and then we don't really have a department. So just that class and that one teacher. So that's why I think this is super valuable to students. And so just kind of moving on to in your career. So you started your career in CBRE as a manager, real estate manager. So can you just tell
Yeah.
us about that experience and how that opportunity came up, and yeah, how'd you get into that space?
Yeah. So, like I said, I had a lot of internships through college, and was actually working. My senior year was working for a broker, just going in and cold calling every day, and
Yeah.
learned a lot that semester. Didn't make a single penny, but certainly learned a lot, and kind of, kind of showed me. And this was 2007, so, 2000, stuff wasn't looking great, on the transaction side. So I went in, I fully committed to the management side and got linked up with CBRE.
Yeah.
And, so back then it was a little bit different than it was, CB had the franchise here, CB New England.
Right.
Now it's all sort of the same CB, but CB New England was here, but I actually worked for CB Corporate. Um, I was part of this group called Global Corporate Services, and we managed medical office healthcare. So Partners Healthcare was our biggest client, and obviously they're a monster in these parts. So it was a lot of like doctors' offices and medical office space. Newton Wellesley Hospital was in there, but then a lot of these sort of medical office buildings, and that was like still a new kind of thing in real estate. Um, but so it was full property management, but also got involved a lot in sort of the renewals with some of the doctors and stuff that more at the partners kind of client level. And working for CB obviously was working for such a large real estate firm. I got really a lot of good experience working in such a big company, a big real estate company, seeing how they did things from a process standpoint. Um, and ironically enough, when I actually started working, I worked for Trammell Crow, which is a company that
Okay.
you know Trammell Crow got folded into CB Richard Ellis. So we're going to talk about the Madison, PM Realty Group
Yeah.
merger. That was sort of my first merger. I was like a month on the job when it happened, but
No
it was
way.
just like looking back, it was a great experience to like, I literally started and then all of a sudden it was like, kind of like an absorption into one big company getting absorbed by another big company.
Right.
and all the intricacies that go along that. So in addition to the real estate I was learning a lot about just, the integration of companies and cultures and all that stuff. So yeah, great. I tell a lot of people when I meet, to get that big name on your resume first out of school is always, I think, a good thing. So did it for a few years and then, was kind of ready to take the next jump.
Got it. Got it. And so, you know, in CBRE, what kind of you said you were in the corporate side. So what was your kind of your man, I'm blanking out here. Your daily, your day to day, like your responsibilities.
Yeah, so it was so again, Partners Healthcare was our client and they own, like obviously our health care system in Boston is one of the bigger ones and Partners of, behemoth, Mass General and Brigham and Newton Wellesley and all these things are under an umbrella. And they have a massive real estate department. And so they hire like CBs of the world to essentially manage like a large share of their portfolio. So that's everything from the day-to-day management, the physical taking care of the spaces and interacting with the doctors to, all of the sort of financial, management that goes along with these assets, because they do own a lot of real estate for being, it's funny, they're in the healthcare business, but they certainly are in the real estate business too. A lot of these are big, very high profile buildings that they own. So it's taking care of it from a real estate perspective, and then they take it from there to make it a healthcare facility. But
Got it.
so
And I'm curious, yeah. So what? So from the beginning, from the start, you were in the management space.
yeah,
Why the management space? What kind of drew you to that space instead of like development or
yeah.
administrations?
Yeah, I mean, I got into more of that stuff later on in my career, but early on, management I think is an awesome place for people to start their career. It really blends together a lot of the stuff that you need to sort of know. No matter where you end up in real estate, you have to be able to talk to a lot of different kinds of people. So, I always say it's like wearing hats. You got to be able to talk to, a GC in 1 minute, turn around, flip around, talk to a CEO of a company who's your tenant,
Right.
turn around and talk to the, asset manager of the the ownership group that owns the real estate stuff. So you got to be able to have like 25 different conversations in a day. You got to get the number side, at a minimum, just understanding how, financially a building works and managing, a budget and an operating budget. And so it's a really good blend of, sort of what I would call, getting the real estate side that you sit in front of a computer and learn,
Right.
the number side and budgeting and all that stuff, but then also the physical side. You got to go out and touch the building. You got to, be in the space that that you're responsible for. So it always like, having, like I said, I was really fortunate to have a lot of really good internships in the construction world, and I really liked the construction world, but there was something sort of missing from it. It was it lacked, I would say, like that person that, like the person interaction part, and property
Yeah.
management really kind of blended all that stuff together.
Yeah.
And really it's, my business today is a blend of those two things, which, long way to get here, but that's why I felt like the first job out of school, property management. And I tell people that all the time, whether you want to get into, the asset management side of things or the brokerage side of things, to get that exposure in the property management world really sets you up for whatever you want to do, long term in the industry.
Yeah, no, I think that's something super important to mention. I think that a lot of students are too hooked with having a name, like a big name on their resume, and that's great and all, obviously, but you're kind of
Hmm.
siloed into one block, and you're just like on the computer all day. And real estate is really all about who you know, right? And obviously what you know, but who you know, your network. So it's super important to be out there, and that's why I like to work with boutique, smaller brokerages or not brokerages at any firm, right? I've
Yeah.
done right now. I'm in the development space, so both
Sure.
of them that I worked with, they're not just corporate. I'm sitting in an office. I'm engaged with everything from the construction side to property management to the financing part, everything. So it exposed me to everything, and I'm definitely super grateful about that because I've had internships where I'm just sitting in a computer and it's not really that fun. And so
Yeah,
I
I mean,
hope.
I just on that point, like,
Yeah.
my advice, which I know is one of your questions, so sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but
No, no worries.
my advice when I sit with a lot of young folks, my advice is to just try to be a utility tool and don't pigeonhole yourself into one sort of discipline too early. A lot of people, they want to be deal guys or they want to be this or they want to be that. And they almost like that title almost gets in the way of, I always tell people just say you're a real estate professional and
Right.
you want to learn, as much as humanly possible about, as many areas of real estate. And then down the road, when you do pick a discipline, then you can sort of really focus on the industry and title and market and and that sort of thing. But like for instance, like the best brokers I know, in the industry are ones that like can tell me how an HVAC system works. You'd be shocked about how many don't have a clue and
Yeah.
probably never really even thought to. But like that well-rounded, sort of nature of like just knowing the different things within real estate just makes you better at whatever you end up picking. So like especially when you're young and you're coming out, in that first, few years, those first couple jobs, I think, I'd be less focused on, who it is, what it is, and like, trying to work for the best, get the top paying job, the highest profile job, and just get as much experience and
Right.
really try to be a utility tool. Because, you're gonna, I think you get a better shot of sort of getting struck by lightning if you do it that way. Um, and then if nothing else, when you do finally end up in wherever you're supposed to be, you're just going to be more well-rounded. And I think that makes the best, real estate professionals in my opinion.
No, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's super important early on to be exposed to different things because then you can choose. Okay, I don't like this, but I like this part. Now I'm gonna focus on more on this. Right.
Yeah,
If you're just in a big company, if you go to like I don't know, like Blackstone or something, and obviously not throwing shade at them, that's the best, biggest real estate company. But it's kind of like you're gonna be one out of 1,000 analysts, right? You're just gonna be
hmm
sitting in an Excel. And it's kind of like, that's not what real estate is really about. There's more to that. There's more to it. So
I think it's a mindset too. Like even if you do end up in a job like that, to not limit yourself to only learning, about what you're doing in that first job. If
true,
you're
true.
at Blackstone, you're probably very focused and sort of put in a box, so to speak, on what you could do. But you're at one of the largest, owners of real estate in the
Yeah,
world. If you're not trying to, pull somebody's ear or like, get into places like I always say, like, if you get into a big company, just do whatever you can do to just get into meetings. Like,
absolutely.
even if it's just like, hey, can I shadow this meeting or can I take minute meetings for this? Like, because I think if you keep showing up to meetings, eventually it's like, where's Lorenzo?
Yeah,
Like, so, that's the benefit of working, to your point, the smaller boutique, you naturally get to get exposure to a lot of things just because there's less hands to do it. In the
right,
bigger firms, I think it's all about mentality and just trying to find those pockets where like you have a job in a job description and it's, and it's one that you got to do well, but it's not, I guess, not settling for just learning about that. It's, constant, it's taking advantage of being in a big company and having all those avenues to, just kind of throw yourself at. So either way, I think it's more of a mindset mentality when you're starting out.
yeah. I agree, 100%. Cool. So just moving on, after
Yeah.
CBRE, you went to PM Realty Group. So just kind of walk us through that progression. You spent
Yeah.
9 years there, and
Yeah.
kind of, what did you do there, and what was that role like?
Yeah. So that was so PM Realty Group was a Houston-based firm. They did not have a Boston office. I got a call from a guy I actually used to intern with who, knew that they were looking for somebody to help open the Boston office. And so I took the flyer and did that, which was, it was still being part of a national firm. So definitely, still had elements of, a big national firm, but they didn't have a Boston office. So I got to like build it, which was
Wow.
really cool. There was a big portfolio of industrial properties that, they got awarded the management of, and that's why they needed to open the office. And so it was a cool time to be able to open the office, build sort of a name that no one knew about around here, and start working on this product, called industrial that nobody was paying attention to. Nobody really wanted to own. The guys who did own it, there was a few guys that made a gazillion bucks owning it, but the big institutions, the big banks weren't touching it. Brokers were like, how am I going to get a fee on $3 a foot? Like, you
Yeah.
know, so it was a risk, so to speak, to like link up with a company that didn't have a name around here and work on a product type that like everyone's like, why are you doing industrial? It's like dirty and
Yeah. Yeah.
fast forward now, it's a
Yeah. It's
different
everything.
story, but
Yeah.
2009, 10, like nobody was thinking about industrial in New England and
Yeah.
Texas and these other places where you could put big bombers and they had land and stuff. It wasn't like a popular asset class by any stretch. So took that, and really that was a great opportunity for me because, right away I got involved, I would say, in more of the running of the office too, just in addition to the real estate stuff, which I learned a lot. Um, and that's where I kind of really morphed into more of an asset management role on certain portfolios. I then kind of I took ownership of the office truly and expanded the business. I sat on top of the P&L for the Northeast with PM Realty Group. Really got more involved in the corporate side of things, and yeah, really fortunate. I mean, it was like I said, it was that perfect blend of a company that nobody heard about around here, so it kind of gave me that ability to go and try to build something, which benefited me later. And in addition, there was a really good portfolio to work on, and a portfolio of stuff that like today, what it's worth versus what it was worth. It's just wild,
Yeah.
what's happened. Um, but and got exposure, and the portfolio was originally it was owned by KBS, um, and a group out of Los Angeles called Hackman Capital Partners, and then locally here, by a company called Calare Properties, and it ended up getting recapped by Oak Tree Capital.
Okay.
So got a really good exposure to sort of that bigger institutional investor and how they work and their needs and the intricacies there, while also being able to work with like an operator like Calare Properties is, and really understand how to really add value on the ground. It was a great mix, to have that kind of experience there.
And was it all industrial assets?
Yeah, so the portfolio, the original portfolio that sort of spurred the opening of the office from PM was all industrial. It was mostly around here. There was some stuff in Pennsylvania,
Oh
some
wow.
stuff in upstate New York, and then some stuff in Texas actually.
Okay.
And so and it ran the gamut from well located to not well located, good product to bad product. But it was a really good mix. It was, I got to travel sort of for the first time in my career and learn how to go into a market that I don't know and, set up relationships and so it was good. But it was primarily industrial. As I, grew the book of business, we got into, office and some retail and stuff like that. But, primarily it was industrial.
Okay.
Um,
So
yeah.
you were not only managing the Boston assets, but also the Pennsylvania and New York and all that stuff?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Oh wow. So what was that like? Like you were just traveling over there and like what were you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it, now having an office in South Florida, it's a lot better when I travel, but back then it was like to Syracuse and Buffalo and Pittsburgh, which, in the dead of winter are not places you
Oh yeah.
wanna,
No, no, no.
you wanna be traveling to. But, like every market I've sort of like, we open up an office in South Florida and it's the same thing. There's a way to sort of set up a network, whether you have a property in a different market or you're trying to set up an office, you have to network, you have to figure out sort of like who's who, and then try to get in front of them and find good people, which is really, most of the business,
Right.
in any, sort of business that you're in. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun to, fun to learn a different market and make relationships in different places.
Yeah.
And, like everybody kind of does it differently a little bit, and just kind of taking maybe what one brokerage does in this area and applying it to, how maybe you can approach an asset, up here, or vice versa.
Got it.
Um, so yeah, it was fun. Definitely not like, exotic locations to travel to and spend a lot of time in like, snowed in Buffalo, but it was
Yeah.
it was a cool part to, early in my career.
Got it. So then finally in 2019, PM Realty Group merged with Madison Marquette. So tell us about that. How was that like? And
Yeah.
what was your role in that?
Yeah, so at that time I was one of four guys in the company that sort of ran the P&L for the company. Like I said, we were based in Houston. I ran the Northeast. There was a guy running the Southeast, guy running the Central Division, and then the West Coast. Um, and I really had sort of full P&L responsibilities at the time. PM Realty Group, had kind of flirted with selling before, and finally they linked up with Madison Marquette, around, I think it kind of sort of started to happen around late 2018. But the transaction closed, in 2019. And that was, I will say, probably learned the most going through that process. Can't say it was executed the way that it should have been, but I think that's where you kind of learn the most from. And so going through, the transaction part, I had a big role and, was sort of brought into that early on. And then just, messaging to employees, messaging to clients, messaging to the market, like all that stuff that you have to do as part of an acquisition. I learned a lot pretty quickly. In doing that, I had a lot of loyalty to the guys that, were selling PM. One in particular that I wanted, the transaction to be successful for. So, that certainly helped. But anytime you combine two cultures, there's always stuff that comes from it. And unless you go through it, you can't really know what it's like. So,
Got
and
it.
I'm sure every merger or acquisition is different. But there's probably common themes again, just like how to integrate cultures. And Madison had primarily been a retail investor and really didn't understand the management side, at least the third party capacity management that we were doing. So there certainly was an education and that sort of thing. So great experience to go through. But yeah, and that I don't know. I can go right into sort of the next step I made, which, having gone through that merger, I had always felt like I wanted to go out on my own. I always had that itch. Unfortunately, I had a really good client base that trusted me and wanted to work with me. So after the merger was successful, I started to just kind of test the conversations with clients, like, hey, if I went out and did this on my own, would you come with me? And got a lot of yeses and a lot of positive, response. One of my clients at the time was two guys that were actually some of my better friends in the industry. They'd rolled out of Calare Properties, which I talked about earlier. Andrew Glasky and Brian Blake, and I approached them. I said, "Hey, I want to start my own thing," and they were like, "Yeah, we'll come with you for sure, but what if we try to figure out a way to do this together?" So partnered with those guys, and really kind of late 2019 started the process of creating Seyon Management. And I was really fortunate too. I had 10 people that worked for me at PM Realty Group, or at this point it was Madison Marquette, and they came with me, and Madison was really courteous, and we worked through the transition, and um, they ended up being a really good sort of counterpart to what they knew what was happening, and rather than fight it, they made it. We both kind of made it easy on each other. And those 10 people that came with me, I to this day owe a lot to them. This was kind of set it up so that December 31st of 2019, they worked for Madison Marquette. January 1st, 2020, they worked for Seyon Management, and most of them just didn't even like. I told them, "Hey, we're doing this. You guys are gonna come," and it was like, "Yeah, okay, sounds good." Like,
Wow.
just sort of blind loyalty that I'm super, fortunate and feel really, like I owe them something. And then you fast forward. So we started January 1st, 2020. We had about 2 months until the world shut down, and it was, I say to this day, I mean, if we had started fresh with just brand new employees that hadn't worked together, I mean, everybody going remote, that was a brand new thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we'd be here. But the fact that that team had been together so long and that were so loyal to me, and it was just like business as usual. They were working for a different company. The name had changed for them, but I mean, it was a seamless, move for those guys. And so, like I said, I don't think we'd be sitting here if
Yeah.
it wasn't for the team that I had. And so I'm really fortunate to that. So, COVID was very scary, obviously, starting a company, and, pandemic I wouldn't recommend it. But like I said, I had great teammates. I had great partners, great business partners. And it was one of those times where it was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but just every day, just try to figure this out and go from there. And I think from that point, we've been very successful. We've kind of grown in every measurable category. Our headcount has grown. Our square footage under management has grown. Our we opened an office in South Florida. We have an office in Philadelphia now, and all along the way, it's been a really fun journey to build the company. Ironically enough, of those 10 people that started, I think there's only one with me, and various reasons they moved on, or we needed somebody different at the time. And just kind of the normal growth cycle of any company,
Yeah.
kind of going from just starting to where we are today. So it's been a really fun journey. And so really, it's no different. I mean, we really have two main business lines. We do property management, which is inclusive of a heavy financial component. So a lot of accounting and reporting. We have a big accounting group here. All of our clients for the most part are big institutions and have heavy reporting requirements. So the property management service line is very financial in addition to the physical. And then our second business line is project management, or owner's rep project management, or we call it construction management, which is really just, really that soup to nuts kind of project management, from entitlement, permitting, to, working with A&E on projects, and then GC selection, managing the project, all that stuff. So we've done ground up. We've done, a lot of TI work that's tied to leases, which are, obviously in the buildings we manage. So there's a good interplay between, the two business lines and the two teams that work those. But that's pretty much our the two business lines that we do now.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I just have a couple questions about that. I
Sure,
mean, I think that's
sure.
great that, you know, 10 people came with you, and I'm curious, like, how did they go from, how were they so confident to switch from, like salary job, right? They were paying off to a startup. Just kind of curious, how did you kind of, how do you say, transfer that confidence to them and convince them to come with you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they kept the same salary, so that helped.
Oh, okay, okay.
But like I will say, you'd have to ask them because I don't know. I mean, obviously, I like to think that they trusted me, and they saw something that, like, I wasn't gonna let them down, and
Right.
it was worth the risk to do it. But you'd have to ask them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I
Oh,
like to say that they just, I call it blind trust to a certain extent, because a lot of the folks, I had to have conversations with all of them, right? And it was very, like, hey, I'm leaving, and they knew what that meant. Um, and then it was like, but I'm starting this thing, and I want you to come. And you'd think I would have gotten 1,000 questions, but a
Yeah,
lot of them were like, okay, sounds good. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
and I, like I said, the transition with Madison was a good one. I actually took the office over that they were sitting in, so they actually kept going to the same office. So minimal disruption, I would say, but still, I'm sure they went home and had conversations with their spouses or whoever. Were like, I don't know what Greg's doing, but we'll go see if he can pull it off.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm curious, like, how did you have that confidence to jump in and start your own thing? Like, what kind of drove you? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, I just worked for so many big companies and at different companies and different sort of parts of, and I felt really confident that, that I could create something that was a little bit different in the marketplace, and really kind of like, carve out a niche and then build a team that could execute on that. Having great business partners and they own an investment firm, so I knew that at a minimum, there was business coming from those guys. But just, I think it was just like I felt like we could create something, and I felt like that there was a place, to build something, and it was worth taking the shot.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, definitely. So, and also, you mentioned through COVID, obviously that was super scary, but you're in property management, right, or asset management, and that's kind of, I mean, would you say, right? Would you say it's kind of like recession proof, or because it's that you still need that, right? It's like multifamily, like people still need a place to live, and in
Yeah.
management, people, you got to manage the property. So, were you kind of, how was that? Were you kind of a little bit safer, right, or compared to other
Well,
people, or
so definitely not safe. I will say that, our fee gets paid off of collections. So when
right,
people pay rent and that sort of thing. The interesting part about COVID is people just stopped paying rent, right? And like even the big companies that could certainly afford it to pay rent, a lot of them just stopped out of almost like business strategy, because like they weren't,
really?
evictions were not an option for most landlords. It was a very weird time. So it was scary. I will say that, like, up until that point, there was certainly I mean, we've always had, or at least companies that I've run, a high attention to, rent recovery and the AR component. Um, I will say that, like, that early COVID, I mean, you had people that probably had never even looked at an aging report from a rent roll, to being hyper focused, because like it was. I mean, we had multiple calls a week on all the portfolios, just going through like who paid rent and who didn't, and there was all these conversations about, trying to work with tenants, because there was a lot of people that really did get hurt through COVID and couldn't pay rent. I mean, even in the industrial space, you had like CrossFit gyms or breweries or whatever that, I mean, they really were hurting. So working with them, but I think that focus of like that accounts receivable part of the business, there was always focus on it, but it got like turned up by 10. And I think it's still you can still see part of that in today's, and just your sort of the way that big institutions ask about it, or asset management people just having it more of top of mind. Definitely a thing that, because when you have a portfolio with good credit companies, you don't really worry about rent not coming in. It's like,
Right.
that's why you have tenants like that. And then something like COVID happens, and it's like different ball
Yeah.
game. So,
Yeah.
so I do think that there's a lot of, like, at least our people too, I think, are a lot more focused on, and there's hyper focus, which I think is always a good thing, right? Because what's the point of owning a building if you don't get paid the rent that you're supposed to,
Yeah.
right? So, but that, especially early on, like I said, we get paid on the collections, and people just stop paying rent. So it was
Yeah.
it was a
Wow.
weird place to be.
Crazy.
But yeah, and then fortunately, the other thing of this story is, the portfolio of properties that we did have right out of the gate, they were all primarily industrial, mostly warehouse, and of all the asset classes, that asset class. if anything, I think a lot of it got a bump through COVID because everyone was getting their stuff delivered to their house. So the companies that could survive almost thrived a little bit in certain areas, and the ones that didn't, you just sort of worked out. But fortunately, we had the right portfolio mix at the time too.
Got it.
I think if we were managing a bunch of hotels, it would have been a different story.
Oh yeah, no, 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 yeah, that'd be that'd be crazy. So just last question on this topic.
Sure.
How did you, obviously now you are managing, you have your own business, and you're not only managing assets, but you're also managing people. And so obviously, you studied management in Bentley, so that kind of, you know, it fell into place. Just kind of what is it like running your own business and managing all the people and all the teams. Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I joke. I do, I don't do a lot of real estate these days. It's mostly people management, mostly business development, I would say. Um, yeah, I think you can take all the classes and read all the books, and and I think doing that is something any good manager should do. But there's just some situations that you got to work out your own and
Of
find your own
course.
style. And it's cliche to say, but like it's so much about just making sure you get the right people, making sure first you have the right business partners, which I do. I have three really strong business partners that we complement each other really well.
Right.
And then just the folks that I have in the company. I mean, so you know about 2-3 years ago, I really made an effort to build out an executive team, to try to help sort of drive efficiencies and that sort of thing, and found two really strong executives, and they make it a lot easier to run the day to day. They focus on a lot of the day to day, and they're just really good at what they do. So it is so much about just making sure that you have good people, and like now just paying attention to the stuff that like what is our the temperature, the culture, and things that we can do to make it better. um we're at that size of the company where you do have to be cognizant of a lot of things, and one bad egg can kind of spoil, so you have to really be focused on that. At the end of the day, you just have to remember that these people are here. They want to be a part of the team, they want to be part of a company, but they also have their personal interests and fears
Of
and
course.
goals, and you got to kind of try to balance all that stuff. So it's a fun job at times. It's a stressful job at times. But I love coming to work. I love what I do. I love seeing sort of where we were 5 years ago to where we are now. And then if I close my eyes and think about what we could be 5 years from now, it's that's what really fires me up. Um, but I think just like the to sum it up, it's just surround, just constantly being, you know, aware and trying to surround yourself with good people, whether it's your business partners or the folks that you have, that are in the company.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we're running a little bit out of time, so I'll just move through these quickly.
Sure, sure.
Just curious, what was your toughest challenge that you faced in your career? Would you say?
This challenge. I mean, I think this probably is it's like anybody. It's just knowing whether the decision in front of you is the right one, right? Like leaving a company like CB to go work for a company no one ever heard of in Boston and work on product that everyone was telling me not to. I definitely remember that time being like, is this the right move? So I think just being like okay that you're gonna hit points in your career like that where you don't know if it's the right move, or maybe something happens that's outside of your control and you're like, why the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Like a COVID or something.
Right.
So I think just I don't know if there's one challenge. I would just say it's hard, and I think recognizing that to build your career, especially if you stay in one industry, and there's just a lot of challenges that come with making the right decision, and looking at opportunities. And I always tell people, like, just make the best decision with all the information you got today, and when that information changes, then you can change your decision. Like nothing's set in stone, nothing's final.
Yeah.
So
And in that same topic, like, how did you? Obviously, everybody has doubts. And
Mhm.
how did you deal with those doubts?
Yeah, I think, I think you got to make a decision and then you got to go.
Gotta
And
go.
like I
Yeah.
said, until new information presents itself and you feel like there's another decision tree at your feet, you gotta jump 2 feet into everything you're doing, no matter what. Like whether it's you're gonna go and you want to be on the acquisition side, but you don't have that option available right now, so you're gonna take a property management job to get in the industry and learn and be a utility tool. Everything I just said, it's 2 feet in there, right? Because I think the worst thing you can do is go into a job and not be fully in.
Right.
Because and you gotta. So I think you gotta take all the information you got, make a decision, and then just go. I mean, way easier said than done sometimes, but I think the decisions feel so big at the time a lot of times, and then you look back and there'll be a bigger decision coming at you. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah. No. Definitely. I mean, that's something that I deal with. I like sometimes I'm like overthinking way too much about something, and it's just like,
Yeah.
obviously you gotta be confident before you jump in to do something. You gotta be, assess the different risks, but
Yeah.
definitely just jump in and do it.
Confident enough, I would say. You don't have, nothing's gonna feel 100%
Right.
good.
Right.
I mean, maybe, but likely not. You're always going to have a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, like, just whatever the opportunity is, whatever, like, just give it everything you got and keep your eyes open because good things happen, when you do that. And I've seen it, like, people with massive jobs now and looking back at their, like, first job, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of people that had really big, fancy jobs out of college that don't have big fancy jobs now. And it's just like you never.
Yeah.
I think it's just how you approach it every day, and then the opportunities will come. You know.
Absolutely. So you moved up pretty quickly in your career. What do you think made you stand out?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a very competitive person. I think just like I said, like I just wanted to be a sponge in everything I possibly could get my hands on. I think making the jump to PM when I did in my career was a good one. I was at that point in my career where I wanted more. And so, I have told people this, not that it's the only path, but if you have the opportunity to work for a big firm right out of school and then go smaller firm, I think that's a really good path for somebody because I think if you kind of put in your time in the call it the bigger shops and that sort of thing, you get a lot of really good knowledge, you get a lot of really good exposure, and you're kind of like at that point in your career where you're ready to take that step. Not to say that there's other, avenues to get to, where you want to get to. But I think it's just having a hard work ethic. I think, we haven't really touched on that too much, but like, I mean, you did, it's who you know. I mean, the network that you keep in this industry is everything. It's
Right.
such a small group of people that do what, that are in real estate, especially in Boston. And even, I mean, even on a national scale, like it's a small, big industry.
Yeah.
So constantly being able to network and build relationships with people and that's a huge part of as you advance and throwing yourself kind of out there. Good part is most people that get into real estate for the most part are pretty personable people. I don't think you
Yeah.
do very well. So it is, I have some of my best friends and relationships that I've built have been through work and met them early on, and now we have big jobs, and it's just it's so much about networking as you go here, and also just like your network's going to give you the opportunities.
Right.
Like I can almost every opportunity that came to me came from somebody else, and
Absolutely.
that somebody else was somebody I didn't know before I got in the
Yeah.
industry.
And
So
yeah, and I just remember I was gonna say this before. Asking, man, asking people. They're like people want to help you. Like that's what something that I've noticed. I'm always asking people. Like for example, obviously I'm in development, and I was calling the other day like architects and stuff just to kind of
mhm.
learn about their process. And I mean everybody's wants to help you, and
Yeah.
just asking will get you a long way, and that kind of starts build that relationship up. And it shows like, oh, this for example me, like, oh, this is a young guy, like, but he's showing interest and he's showing commitment and all that stuff. So that definitely helps out a lot.
Everybody's been in the same place in their career.
Yeah,
I don't care who, they've always, for the most part, everybody's been that person that wants more and young in their career and learning. And, I tell people all the time, you'd be shocked. Whoever, circle a target list of people, just send them an email. You're not asking for
absolutely.
anything. You're not asking for a job. You just want to grab coffee. People love to talk about themselves. I'm probably one of them, but
Yeah,
you just get, you'd be shocked the response that you'll get, of like, hey, can I just have 45 minutes of your time and have them tell you the same thing I just told you. Just how did you get here, right? Because I think just that perspective and you know, uh, most of the time it's going to be like, hey, why don't you call this guy? And then, it's, or I know this woman over here. Like it just, it's the best thing you can do is just circle a hit list of people and just email them. Like worst case scenario, they ignore you.
yeah, definitely. So, Greg, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Jeez. I don't know. I mean, so I'm really excited about where we're at. I think we've been able to really build a really good team. I think there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of new sort of clients that we're starting to work with. That's really exciting. I also, me and my partners, we launched a second company a couple of years ago called Grove Street Services, which is much more of that facilities level stuff. So snow removal, landscaping, small job general contracting. We're sort of on iteration two of that company. We just hired a president. So I think there's a lot of potential there to grow that and have it be a good a good tack on to our service offering in general, but also have the ability to go and work for other people and other disciplines and that sort of thing. So I love the building side of the this. So I'd say that 5 years is a long time. I'd say that's
Yeah,
probably the next 2 years. After that, I don't know. It's I just keep showing up every day and try to make the best decision for the company and take care of my people and good things happen when I do that.
absolutely. Cool. Just wrapping it up. If you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway from your story, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of a summation of everything I just said is take advantage of, early on in your career is a scary part, but it's also a really exciting part because you don't, you're not kind of tied down to any one place or avenue. And if you really are serious about it, real estate, just try to get as much exposure as possible. So take internships, and if you can do it for free, do them for free. Take a take experience where you can get it, and network. And fortunately, there's a lot of really good industry or a lot of really good organizations within the real estate world that cater to the younger. So NAIOP being one of them, NAIOP.
Yeah,
They have, I think it's called Emerging Leader. I don't know, they might have changed it. I classed out of it, but it's 40 and under, events, which is all sort of young people that are getting going. They have a lot of committees that you can sit on, and they do a lot of really good panels. But like, so those events you go and, you meet a lot of people that you end up being friends with for a long time. So, and it's relatively low cost. To join, especially as a younger, person. And it's just kind of like throwing yourself into it and getting yourself out there. So just being super, sort of aware of opportunities and being on the lookout constantly and then just networking as much as possible. And, taking flyers and taking risks and reaching out. I will say, I'm pretty good. I think when I do see messages from, sort of younger folks to sit down, I respond. If I have ever not responded to you, it's because I probably didn't see it. But me or whoever, just take a shot and try to get in front of somebody and, hear about the industry and just pick their brain. There's no harm in trying that. And I think people appreciate that too, especially the ones that like have sent me a note and I just didn't get back to them and they send another one and another one. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll talk to this guy. You know what I mean? Like it's there's you don't be afraid to don't be annoying, but don't be afraid to stay on somebody that you identify as somebody that would be interesting to talk to. And if it's not them, maybe they'll pass you off to somebody else or whatever. So I think it's approaching your career like that, like, and nothing's set in stone. Like where you're working today is going to be different down the road. What you're doing today is going to be different, but just giving everything that you possibly can to what you're doing, and trying to keep that network growing as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you responded to me super quickly, so I
Well,
appreciate
you
that.
guys, you guys do a great job. I mean, all the guys that I've dealt with over the years, you guys do a really good. I mean, I can't imagine there's many schools that have a real. I think there was a club when I was there. And I'm sure there. Maybe I just didn't go, but it wasn't as dialed in, or I can imagine it wasn't as you guys are. I mean, every event you guys put on, I'm always impressed. I'm impressed by how much you guys know. In just industry and just in general. And I think it's great. I think it's awesome. And if you take the same approach to this, and after you guys leave Bentley, you guys are all gonna do really well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys over the years. I'm glad. However, I got linked up with you guys. But
Yeah.
always can be a resource to anyone. Love helping Bentley folks. I met my wife at Bentley, so we're a very
Oh,
Bentley family. So and we've actually hired some Bentley kids. We've had some interns from actually I think I spoke one of the years, and ended up with an intern from it. So you never know.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm always willing to help Bentley guys and gals, and be a resource where I can.
Awesome. So, lastly, how can students connect with you if they want to kind of reach out and learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So email's probably the best. I don't know if you want to share it or you want me to say it right
Yeah,
now,
say it.
but
I'll put it in the. I'll put it in
it's
the.
just G Hughes at Seyon Management, Seyon Management.com. Just shoot me a note. If I don't get back to you right away, shoot me another note. And like I said, if it's having coffee or just phone call, I'll always find time to help folks. And if it's not something that I feel like I can specifically help with, it's a small industry. I probably know somebody who can help. So
Definitely.
always
All right.
willing to help.
Greg, thank you so much for being here. Great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job, Lorenzo. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.